Hi. Hi. That was sweet. I'm Evian Wagner. I am apparently too loud for my microphone. I came from Atlanta, and I work for Hapara, and I'm here to give you guys a very quick overview of all the things Hapara that you have. It may be a little overwhelming today, but hopefully I will leave you with a couple of things that you really, really want to use in your classroom and ways to answer your questions if you have more questions. Without further ado, because there was a bit of ado, I will give you this short link if you want to get onto the presentation. The presentation is very, very short, and then I'm actually going to jump into the product. But if you want to grab this, it's yours for copying or taking or training purposes from here on out. So just bit.ly/Hapara Hoopeston. It's Hoopeston? 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 But what about the E? Yes.
I was confused too when I first got here, but he had to explain to me that it's like a Hoopeston,
I feel like I need to do this every time I say Hoopeston. Okay, well, thank you for correcting me. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful drive out here. So there is your short link, not the world's most important link. Speaking of the world, this is the world, and this tiny arrow points to where Hapara started. And we grew out of a school district that was trying to do really great 21st century learning and was banging their head against a wall because it's hard to do all the things that we want to do when there's only 24 hours in a day. So they developed a product in conjunction with looking at a study that was correlating a whole bunch of data on student learning and what actually accelerated learning. So these 5 things are what we look to when we are creating our product, when we're talking about the product, and when we're talking about using it in the classroom. Differentiated instruction, which can be much easier with technology. Collaboration and relationships. Formative assessment, so the kind of day-to-day check-ins as opposed to the end of the year, did they learn it? Okay, bye, see you later. Visible learning, which will be a little bit more clear when I talk about the product. And then learner agency, where we mean student ownership over their learning. So the students are not just a bucket in which we put all of our wise teachery information, but they are a part of their educational process. So Hapara is broken into 3 pieces, which I will go over today. The first and kind of the original part of the product is Hapara Dashboard, which gives you visibility into what your students are doing in their Google Drive and hover or one-click access into those documents. It's going to give you a space to quickly and easily provide ongoing formative feedback. Again, those check-ins, the comments that help the students as they're working, not when they finally turn something in, because when they finally turn it in, they don't care what you think about it anymore other than the number grade you put on it. The second piece of Hapara is Workspace, where you can create digital lessons for your students to grab and participate in. Spots in there for really easy differentiation that's very flexible, and definitely spaces for reinforcing that learner agency, again, where the students are a part of their learning and they're a part of the community in which they do their learning. It is rather easy, once you learn the basics, to plan and deliver those assessments, or those lessons. And there are spaces in there too to foster professional collaboration, either by adding a co-teacher to your lesson or by sharing the lessons that you create or grabbing other people's lessons that they've already created publicly or within your school. Third piece is Hapara Highlights, which is usually everybody's stepping stone into Hapara, which gives you visibility into what your students are doing on the Chrome browser or on their Chromebooks. It's going to give you a lot of places to reinforce digital citizenship and talk about what students should be doing online, what they perhaps shouldn't be doing online, and ways to make those things more what you would like them to be. It's also going to give you some tools to help use instructional time more effectively, things like being able to send them all a link that just pops up onto their screens. Hooray. Very simple. And so we are going to jump onto teacherdashboard.com. I encourage you to go with me. You will see your classes. I will see my little test class, hopefully, if it stays logged in here. And I will kind of walk you through what we've got. So hopefully this stays here. Your access will probably be easier than mine. It won't keep asking you for permission. It's just that I'm on a Chromebook and it's getting confused. If you're logged into a Chromebook or logged into the Chrome browser, there should be zero confusion. But what will happen is you will land at a page that looks like this. The thing I like to point out about Hapara, especially as you're getting started, is that we function in a system of horizontal menus. It's easy to get lost if you don't pay attention to your horizontal menus. So your first horizontal menu is up here. The Hapara logo will take you back to the start. It will take you to this page. And I kind of call these tabs. So currently we are in the Manage Classes tab, and you know that because it's yellow and underlined. Under that, another horizontal menu. It's very spare right now, but it will expand. And we are looking at My Classes. If you're a classroom teacher, you will see your classes here in little cards. If you're something like a teacher librarian or an administrator, you will be able to fetch classes from All Classes, which will have a large list of classes, and both have a search bar if you want to search for classes as a classroom teacher, not so handy, but All Classes may be rather extensive, so the search bar is nice to have. I like to point out that in the entire product, you have this help button here, which is lovely if you know questions to ask, which hopefully at the end of this presentation, you'll start having some questions and you can type in phrases or keywords here and get answers to your questions within the product. So that help button is always there and you don't have to go out to a different support page. Also, nice to point out that the pencil at the top of the card will allow you to give your class a nickname. If your student information system brings it in with like a big long history 915-1516 WA, you can rename it. You can name it whatever you want because this is only for you. So you could name it Bob, Sue, Bill, or my worst class ever, although I would not recommend that because sometimes we like to project this information on the board and you don't want the students to feel badly about themselves, even if it's true. So name them your Jedis, whatever, but let's try not to get mean. And you can also choose a colored bar for the top of that card there for your visual self. But that only changes it for you. Doesn't change it for anyone else. No one sees it. It's just for your own viewing pleasure. So to click, if you click into that card, you see your class. I am lucky. I only have 8 students in my class. But what this is showing me, new horizontal menus, is dashboard. So we're in dashboard right now. And this is my class folder. What Hapara does in this piece, dashboard, is for each class, it creates a folder in each student's Google Drive with the title of their class and their name. That folder is automatically shared with you. So it lives in the Shared With Me section of your Google Drive. You can get to it that way or see the stuff here. But anything they put in this folder, History 9, will be visible to you here. And there are also ways to share things to this folder as well. They may not know the folder exists, but you can tell them, and it'll just be in their main drive with this name. So whatever the name is up here is what the name of the folder will be. Each student has a card. We call these little squares cards. And as a teacher, you have the ability to hover over something that you see and get a preview, which gives you a lovely picture of the fact that Alicia never does her work, doesn't even start it. In this case, that's my favorite student, Alicia. But it also tells you when Alicia last worked on it, when she last viewed it, and who else has rights over the document, which sometimes can be great information if they are supposed to be collaborating on a document, or if they are not supposed to be collaborating on a document, and they have shared it with someone else. That information is available to you by just hovering your mouse over it. You don't even have to click on it. You can, however, click on the document. The first time you do so, it's going to ask you for permission like this, but after that, it will not ask you. And it is especially confused because we have a bunch of accounts logged in. But it should not ask you for permission after that, ever again. This is Alicia's wonderful essay. So just one click, normally, without that permission nonsense, will get us in where we can do things like leave comments for the student. The more specific, the better, unlike my comment there that was very unspecific, but for these purposes, that's what it is. You can click the X to get out of it, and you're back to your dashboard. So any document that you see, you can hover over to get a preview of, or click into to actually get into that document. And again, this is anything in that shared folder. You also have some sort functions on the top right, and these remain the same throughout Hapara. So here you can see on that card up to 25 items, and they are sorted as the most recent thing they worked on to the last. So you can see up to 25. If you want to see more than 25, the 3 dots on the top of each of the student cards, 3 dots generally mean there's a hidden menu, especially in the Chrome world, will give you a hidden menu here where you can open that shared folder and see the whole shared folder. You can also email the student from within there, and you can edit their groups. Groups work the same through most of the platform. In this case, you choose the colored bars that appear at the top of their card. And those are flexible. You can keep changing them all the time throughout the year, every 5 minutes if you would like. And then as a teacher, if you hover over the little 3 people icon on the top right, groups have 2 functions. You can sort by the groups, and you can also name them here. So your groups can be table groups. They can be behavior categories, IEP, projects that they're working on, whichever ways as a teacher you want to be able to see or share information. So like I said, I could sort by my students that are working on the maple tree assignment. I'll go back to 5. And then I just see, you hit the X to get out of the groups there. So then if I were grading their maple tree projects, I would just see that information. If you want to go back to seeing everybody, you go back up to your groups and click Show All. So it can sort or narrow down the information that you see, or you can share out information based on those groups. And to share information in Dashboard, we have Smart Share, which is at the top right, which allows you to send up to, and it talks you through, it's a little wordy, but it allows you to send up to 5 files to that folder. I like to think of Smart Share as kind of the old school packet. So like if you start a chapter or a unit and you want to give the students all their reading, all their handouts, whatever it is that they're going to need, and you go to the photocopier and you make it and you staple it and you give it to them at the beginning. Smart Share, I like to think of in that sort of way. So if you need to send files out in bulk, you can grab them from your Google Drive. You can create new documents. You can change the titles. Oops, I'm not used to working on a Chromebook. Sorry about that. My fingers are getting fat. I like to append the due date if it's something that you think should be due at a specific time. You can append the student's name to it, which would add their name to the file. And you can choose their permissions. If you're confused about how our permissions are worded, hovering over the question mark will tell you what they all mean. Basically, it's the same as the Google permissions: view, comment, edit, with the addition of being able to send them their very own copy. And then you can choose your recipient, so either the entire class, particular students, or, as promised, groups. So if you have groups set up based on your projects or different levels, however you do your differentiation. There's tons of ways. And then you would hit OK. It'll tell you the progress down here. It's not an immediate thing. So it's not best for like, right now in class, I want you to do this. If you have 30 students and you're trying to send them 5 files, it's going to take a little bit to get to them. But it will work through and send it to that folder. It won't email the students. You'll still need to tell them, just like if you were handing them a packet, like, hey guys, this is all your work for blah, blah, blah. And you can use whatever system you want. Write it on the board, use your mouth, but let them know that that information has appeared in their folder. You might need to help them get to that folder the first time, but after that, anything you dump in there will be visible to you and to them, and anything they put in there will be easily visible to you as well. Helpful to note that you also have a search function up in your sort functions here, and you can sort by title or all text. So you can search for essay about trees, or if your students are bad about titling documents and they have a bunch of untitled documents, you can search in the alt text for some keywords that you know are there to help them out. That is kind of the quickest overview of Dashboard. And again, Dashboard is your view into that shared folder for your specific class. You may have more options here on your horizontal menu. They'll all function the same way. You might have sites or blog comments, anything like that show up there. No? So just that class folder makes it easy. Great. Questions quickly about Dashboard? Oh, you do? OK, so if your students create sites using Google Sites, or if they do posts on Blogger or comments, you'll have the same kind of quick access to be able to grade it. If you've ever had your students do blogs and try to grade them, it's kind of a nightmare. But with this kind of access, it becomes a lot easier to see them quickly without having a giant list of links and spending way too much time. But it'll function the same way as these cards. Questions about Dashboard? Yeah.
So to see those assignments, do they have to be assigned through Hapara, or is it just anything?
Anything that's in that folder. Yeah. So anything they put in that folder or you put in that folder.
So if the student doesn't put it in that folder, we can't see it?
Not true. It's just a different place to see it. So do you folks use Gmail with your students? Do you have the Gmail tab? Quickly, we'll look at that just to go in order. The cards function in the same way, although your 3 dots do not allow you to just go into their email and root around. You can see up to 25 of the last items if you use your sort functions. You can also search, but I caution you to go in with positive intent and not be a weirdo. Yes?
All of our say error IMAX access not.
Jim doesn't have us.
Oh, so we can't see that.
OK, even better then. I'll go over to the sharing tab. And now the sharing tab is similar to Dashboard. It is a window, not a door, into their Google Drive. So notice your horizontal menu here, because it's kind of weird. It defaults to unshared, which is strange. I would go to All Docs, generally. And All Docs is going to show you, by default, the last 5 things they've worked on in their Google Drive. But you can see up to 25, which is probably what they're working on right now. If a student is working on more than 25 documents at the same time, they should either be like given an award or talked to about organizational skills. So you can see up to 25 of the last items they're working on in any class. So if you're their English teacher and they're working on an essay for history, you could see it here and go in and give them some feedback. How nice. Again, I caution you to go in with positive intent as opposed to being a creeper. I would not suggest just rooting around in your free time. Just because you have access doesn't mean that you're completely responsible for everything they say and do in their Google Drive. It is nice to let them know that you can see these things so that they maybe don't do silly things. But anyway, and you also have the search function here. So you can search by title or alt text. Again, use your alt text with positive intent and don't just search for bad words for funsies. So again, if you're their English teacher, you want to help with history, you know they're working on World War II, type that in, but don't just get bored on a Saturday morning and start typing things in to see what they're up to. You can see again by your 3 dots that you do not have the ability to just open up their Google Drive and search around. In Dashboard, you had the ability to open up that shared folder because you are their teacher and you have access to everything in that folder. You do not have willy-nilly access to everything in their drive. You have to either search for it or it has to be one of the last 25 items that they've worked on in one of these categories. So this will be the last 25 in external, last 25 public documents, last 25 unshared, et cetera, but all docs is usually the best place to go. All right, that is your sharing tab. Questions about that? Oops, I meant to go back to 5. Questions about that sharing tab? You have the same permissions here as you did in Dashboard. So you can hover over anything, even again, if it's not a document for your class, and you can click into anything. So everything in their Google Drive is technically shared with you if you have the link. Everything in your class folder is shared with you regardless. Make sense? Okay. What time do we go until 40? Okay, I'm going to pop over to highlights and play a little bit with logons. What highlights is going to do is it's going to give you a view of what students are doing on their Chrome browser, which if they're using Chromebooks is everything. And if they are using a PC is when they are logged into the Chrome browser. I am going to log in as a student over here so that we can, it's just taking me a second because I'm connected to my phone, or I should be, come on. Highlights is generally where everybody steps into Hapara because it's one of the easiest things to use and one of the most quickly useful. Come on, internet, there we go. All right, so in just a moment, hopefully we will see that Alicia will come alive here. Alicia, again, is my test student. And notice your horizontal menu here. We are in highlights, and we are looking at browser tabs. So this will soon show me the browser tabs that Alicia has open on her Chrome browser, hopefully. Let me refresh it. There is a little in-house refresh here, which tends to be a little quicker than refreshing your entire browser. So if things are being a little slow, the in-house refresh is nice. These students are all giving me an error because they're not logged in. If they were sitting in my class, I knew they were logged in. There are some simple ways to fix the problem. If you click on how, it shows you that you would run over to the student computer and click on the highlights extension button. That will run a really quick diagnostic check. And Alicia is not showing up. Come on now. All right. I'm actually doing that right now on Alicia's computer to see if it might solve the problem, but we might have a domain issue because I'm logged in here with my phone. Anyway, so if you did have students here, I'm gonna, yes, and it happened. So yeah, that highlights extension thing is exactly what I just did. I went over to the student computer, I just clicked on the extension, and it runs. Oh, we can see it now. So if you click in, oh yeah, it may give me an error there, but it runs a quick little diagnostic check. Usually it goes green, 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 and then it fixes the situation. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be your best bet. And again, if you just click how, so if Dan is in class, you know he's logged in, but he's not showing up, click how, and it'll give you those directions. Oh, Alicia, come back to me. Hopefully I don't have to keep doing this because that would be really obnoxious. All right, so it's going to show me browser tabs, and I have the ability, although I may not be able to, I think we have a bit of a situation here with the internets. But there'll be a little X next to the browser tabs, and I do have the ability to close their browser tabs, although I will warn you that if they're doing something that they shouldn't, and it's just kind of off-task behavior, and you hit that X, they will just reopen the tab and think that something went wrong with their computer. So have the conversation with them. There are a few ways to have that conversation. Your 3 little dots at the top of the card will give you the ability to send them a message, which is a nice way of saying, hey. In this case, it looks like she's not doing anything too crazy, but you could say, hey, what does that have to do with your essay? Can you get back to work? Or ask them a simple question. It'll pop up a message on the top left-hand or top right-hand side of their screen. There's no way for them to talk back to you. It's not a conversation. It's just a message, which is nice that it doesn't become a chat. You could also open a tab for them, which will pop up this bar that actually belongs to these icons at the top right that are always there with you when you are in the product, and say send them something that might get them more on task, whatever that might be. The New York Times, you can send them more than one by typing the URL and hitting the Enter key. In this case, again, remember this belongs to an icon up here, so you can get to it here and send links to the entire class, groups, or a specific student. In this case, we're sending it to Alicia. If we click Open Tabs, it will open that up for Alicia. If I had this computer up, I would be able to show you that, but it just popped up for Alicia, which is nice. The rest of her tabs are still there. So that's one way of kind of getting her back on task. You also have on your horizontal menu, I'll close this bar up here, the activity viewer, which isn't very exciting right now, but it will show you class activity, including things that were previously being looked at. So if Alicia were to open something strange, let's see. I'll go back to our browser tabs here. If she were to open something a little off task, in this case, Alicia always likes to check on what Justin Bieber is up to. Again, you want to have that conversation before closing out the tab so she doesn't just open it back up again. But if she were to open it up and, like a good girl, close it, you would not only be able to see that it disappeared on the browser tabs, but say you were walking around teaching, as you should be, instead of sitting in front of your computer waiting for bad things to show up. You could, at the end of class, go back to your class activity and get a really nice snapshot of everything that happened in class while you weren't looking, good and bad. So in this case, if you open highlights, you're running around teaching for 50 minutes, you come back to your computer at the end of class, you look at the activity viewer, you can see that at some point, Justin Bieber was opened, but it was closed. Here you can get a little bit more information, including who did that, Alicia, of course. If you wanted even more information on anything in your activity viewer, so if the students were collaborating, if they're on the same site, which is wonderful information, or if they're doing something unique, that's either good or perhaps misled, you can hover over it and you get this little camera icon. If you click on that camera, it will take a snap. I'll take a couple, oops, so that you can see what it does, and then I'll choose snaps from the top here. So on the left-hand side, we've got a list of all our snaps. They're kept for 7 days. So you don't have to look at them right away. Again, at the end of class, take a few snaps, or during class, take a few snaps on your prep period, or tomorrow. You can go through them, and they'll give you more information. So I will click on, from the left-hand side, this Justin Bieber activity, and I'll get more information on it. So it tells me when it was opened, when it was closed. There's a whole really nice timeline, the link to it, and it should also give you, the current screens are being a little wonky lately, but it should give you a picture of the current screen, so a picture of that Justin Bieber tab, whatever it was. If you want to keep this or send it to somebody or do something with it, you could send it to your inbox. You could also, from here, send feedback to your students. So you can write your own feedback or choose from some of our templates, which you will notice are all positive, because the more positive feedback and reinforcement you give them for what they're doing on the Chrome browser, the better their activities will be. But sometimes you may need to, say things like, hey, next time could you get on task a little quicker instead of checking on Justin Bieber? Maybe check on him at lunch. And then you could, whoops, my scroll is getting crazy. You could send that message off to the students. If there are multiple students that are doing it, as if, say they're doing some great collaboration that you want to give them feedback on, you could send it to multiple recipients there. But again, snaps are kept for 7 days, so as you take them, you'll have a big long list. And you also, in here, can see their current screens, although, again, I wouldn't suggest sitting in front of your computer staring at tiny pictures of screens. I would suggest teaching, but having this information available to you. I find browser tabs and activity viewer much more helpful in the teaching process. Current screens might be helpful in the gotcha process, which isn't one that I like to subscribe to. And this will refresh. However, it's not an automatic refresh, so it's not absolutely constant that it's giving you the most recent picture. If you want to refresh it, use your in-house refresh, and it will give you the kind of most recent thing they're looking on. But again, Highlights was not meant as a monitoring or policing tool. It was meant as a tool to interact with students. So the things like sending messages to students, again, whole class, groups, or individual, and this could be behavior messages, hey, great work, or get on task. Could be directions, whatever you want, because it will pop up on that student screen. And then also sending links, which there's one more feature on this opening tabs that I want to talk about, which is focus browsing. So you have a little target icon at the top there. And what that target will do, and it'll tell you if you hover over it, but it will essentially lock the students onto a certain page or pages for a set number of time. You have the ability to limit browsing to anywhere in these sites, which would be the whole domain. Google.com will let them do all of the Google, but not go to New York Times. Limit browsing to only these pages if you wanted them to read a specific article on the New York Times and not be able to browse the entire New York Times. You can choose a time limit, although you can end it early if you'd like. And then the default is to restore tabs after release, which would bring them back to whatever they were working on before. If you click Open Tabs, it gives you and the student a quick countdown, although everything is pretty cloud-based nowadays, so it's not like we have to save our work generally. And you'll notice that these stack up, so you can have multiple focus browsing sessions at once. If you have a different article for each of your groups to be reading, you could do that. And you can focus browsing to up to 180 minutes, but that is cruel. Please don't do that. What happens with focus browsing is, if I can get Alicia on here, I don't know if that worked over there. Focus browsing will close out all of their tabs and send them to just that site. If they try to open up another tab, it will tell them that focus browsing is active. Too bad, haha. Not in those exact words, but I wish. If you want to close their focus browsing session, you can hit the Close Tabs button there. That one's done too, and it will end their focus browsing session early. I recommend focus browsing for things like if you want them all to read something to kind of literally get focused, or if they're doing a test on Google Forms, something like that, where you don't want them navigating out of that site. I would not recommend it as a whole class or behavior thing, because if you're doing it as a behavior thing, you're not allowing them to learn how to internet, which we all had to learn when it's time to multitask, when it's okay to look outside of things, and also their next teacher will hate you because they won't have learned in your class and had that conversation. Also, if you focus browsing for them for the entire period, for the entire year, you are rendering their devices to a piece of paper. Because why are we on the internet if they're only allowed to read that one article instead of being able to use the power of the internet? So that's kind of my spiel on that. Questions about highlights before I jump over to Workspace very quickly and just kind of give you a brief view. Yeah.
Okay, as a dean of students,
Yeah.
sometimes I get emails to check some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and how it is it's not organized for me, I guess, I don't know. But like I'm looking at one that says accounting 1/80/20, they tell me go look into this class, I gotta go find out which kids are in the class to get into. Is there a way for me
Yeah.
to organize this to where I know which hour and redo?
Yeah, so yours will be, when you're at the very start here, it defaults to my classes, but you will look at all classes. So all classes here, we'll pull this up. You can use your search bar to find that accounting class, and then you'll have the same permissions that the teachers will. You also have the ability to give the classes nicknames with those pencils if you want to make it easier to tell the difference between those classes. But that,
I write in which hour.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would be the best way, because they usually come in using whatever your student information system is. So if they're kind of messy or weird,
If we've given our class a nickname already, will he be able to see that?
nope, that nickname is only for you, unfortunately. Yeah, so
Go in and decide what hour.
yeah, generally it's all kind of tied to the big system that brings everything in to keep everyone organized.
She'd have 7 classes, and they'd say, look at Dawn's class, I'd be like going through every one of your.
Yeah.
Course numbers are weird. They
Yeah.
don't have course
Yeah,
numbers.
which generally happens, yeah, is the course numbers. So maybe you'll need to start training people to give you the course number or more information. Yeah, yes.
I have a question about some problems I was having.
Yeah.
The first 10 minutes of class,
Mm-hmm.
they get on Al's math.
Yeah.
And I tried setting a timer,
Okay.
so that way they were locked into only
That focus browsing, correct.
And I thought I was doing it correctly, and I set it for 10 minutes, maybe 15, and then time had run out, closed the tabs or whatever. The next class, I had a student come back to my room and said, Ms. Hyde, could you please let us off of there? Because we can't get on to, our
Yeah.
third hour class. And when I pulled it up, the time, I didn't have on there. I didn't have it locked.
Interesting.
And
It sounds
then
like a
when I
strange
was
kind of
looking-
internal error, because it doesn't sound like you did anything wrong.
And then I started seeing, I had that class pulled up and I showed them, I said, well, I've released it, I
Mhm.
closed the tabs and all of that. And then I started seeing the students from that prior class start to pop up on other things.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if there was a delay there. I didn't
There
know
shouldn't be a
what-
delay, but when you are in a class, you will know, even if for some reason it's not stacked up on the very top there. So when you go to highlights and focus browsing, come on now. Again, this will be much easier for you. When you go to your focused browsing, this little, the target icon, any students that you have focused, that target icon will appear on their card there too. So even if you've X'd out of anything, so when you focus browsing, in order to stop it early, even though the time should be enough, go ahead. Come on. It really doesn't want to do this, does it? I really wanted to show you something. I apologize. I seem to be having a clicky problem. This link isn't clicking, but it'll stack them up here, and there's a button to close those tabs if you want to end it early. And there's also a little X. The little X will just take it off of your view here. So double check if you ever get in that situation again that the student doesn't have a focused browsing little target on their card. And that should allow you to turn it off there too. But it sounds like a strange little error that they were having. But just the hint there that focused browsing icon will show up on their card when they're focused. So if somehow you had left them focused, but X'd out of the view there, it should show up.
Does it happen next class? So I don't even use it anymore.
Yeah. No, please don't do that. That sounds like and maybe you don't need to, because maybe your students can just do that without you having to focus.
That's with me because those kids have to come all the way from one building down the other. Just say, and they have their Chromebook. It's like, could you please let them, because I can't get on there. So I just don't even use it anymore.
Well, maybe test it out and see if you see that little icon show up. Or again, maybe you don't need to use it. Focus browsing, I think, can be an unnecessary evil sometimes. If you just have the conversations with your students and you're watching what they're doing, you may not need to focus the browsing if it's that important. Other quick questions, because I think, are out of time. We're supposed to go to 9:40, correct? So if you folks, at some point today, or I'll send this out in an email so that you can do this later, I do have an exit survey for you so we can see if you liked my bad jokes or not, and if there is any more that we can help you with. Again, I apologize for the little bit of the delay in the beginning, but I think I was able to get you started on some things that you can jump into on Tuesday when you have students again. And happy homecoming. Good luck, I guess. Thanks, folks.